Hello, everyone. We're back here again with another interview. This is the last of the short films that appeared on the second episode of Cine with the Live show, and we have a very big pleasure having with us tonight Azeem Mustafa, writer and director of A Fistful of Nerf. I mean, co-director actually, but still director nevertheless. Before anything, please, Azeem, give me the pleasure and tell me about yourself.
Hi everyone, good to see you all today. My name is Azeem Mustafa. I'm a kind of writer, director, camera operator, editor. A lot of that has slowed down since the lockdown, of course, for most of us. But I've kind of done a lot of that for years now. I do bits of teaching around that subject as well when I'm able to, when someone wants to pay me to. And yeah, I've been making sort of little short films for like my YouTube channel, and just making short skits here and there. Just anything that's fun, really. I kind of, as if you watch the film, I love like westerns, and that film was like my kind of love letter to the westerns of old, the old kind of John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, and all that stuff. So yeah, that was like my own personal celebration of that, while also being a parody of it at the same time.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. So, for example, for A Fistful of Nerf, which is an amazing, it's one of those names that are so good in how simple and obviously parodical they are, that it's surprising that nobody came up with that before. What was the story behind this one, and when did you do it? How did this one happen, for example?
How did it come? We filmed it about 2 years ago now. So this was quite a while back, in about January of 2018, and it just came to. I wrote this script, and I kind of put it together so quickly, just because I'd been trying to write all this serious stuff, and I was trying to find more serious and darker ways of talking about the human condition, and I was trying to like cleanse my own palate a bit, and I was like, let me just make this completely ridiculous script that there's no way in hell anyone would ever like get behind it or support it. And I sent it to like my best mate, and he was like, oh, that's really nice, I like it, you know. And then I sent it to Benjamin Daniels, my co-director, who kind of really helped me push it forward and get it made. And he was like, we should totally make this, I'm really excited about this idea. So just off the back of that, and it was just a way to kind of embrace some more of that silliness and kind of, you know, not be afraid of that, because I think sometimes we have a habit of just wanting to be too serious most of the time, you know. You sit with film festivals and you see these like films trying to like explore really deep topics, and of course short films have that power, but sometimes it's nice to just kind of step away from that and do something that's just a bit more lighthearted, you know.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I mean, first of all, of course, yeah. Shout out here to Benjamin. Sadly, he's not here, but we're with him in Seoul, and hopefully, on the next chance, he'll be more free so he can drop by too. But yeah, what you were saying, yeah, that's actually a very interesting point. What you're saying about I like her the tone and those kinds of projects, because, for example, in our case in Cinebus, we always like when we do a lineup for a screening, or in this case for the show, we always do a kind of from 6 to 10 short films, and kind of as a tradition for us, we always try to end with a funny one or a lighthearted one, or basically something that, as you say, that cleans your palate and leaves you with a smile when you go out. Which we found out is actually quite important to leave with audiences. Funny thing is that, and even then, when these shorts happen, they tend to be quite popular. I mean, people love this kind of stuff. It's really organic, the reaction to it. But there's not that many of those, actually. We kind of struggle to get a big amount of those. You would think that everybody will be jumping on that bandwagon, but it's literally what you're saying. Most people actually, you go to a festival and you see most of them going for the very important and fair topic of exploring the human condition, or this this trauma, or this reflective stance, a social commentary, a political commentary, which is completely fair. But you would think that comedy would get more of a spot.
I think it's like, it is so hard to do comedy because like everyone just has very specific tastes on what makes them laugh, and I think you're trying to like nail a very specific, like if you're waiting for a joke to land and you're in the audience and you're like, God, I hope it lands, and then sometimes you might get laughter and sometimes you don't. That's like a very specific kind of thing. Whereas with drama, it's very much like trying to keep kind of tones consistent, and it's it's less of that kind of balancing act, isn't it? I think
Mhm.
where you're kind of playing with the audience and you're giving them, and then you're kind of taking it back, and yeah, it's I don't know. I get it though. I mean, there is of course those serious films. There's always a space for them, but yeah, I think those funny ones just really bring that much needed levity to
Mhm.
to a festival. Because I've been in some like festivals where it has been 3 or 4 films like that in a row, and then once the funny one comes on, it's like, oh, thank God, finally we can breathe for a bit. Yeah, yeah, the shoulders literally loosen, and it's like the audience has permission to kind of let loose a bit more. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm. Yeah,
so
in A Fistful of Nerf, even though it's trying a lot in its approach, there's a lot of quite technically very professional stuff done. Like there's some impressive shots with the drones, clever use of camera, if I may say so. Like I really like the cinematic approach. Obviously, it takes a lot of the western, so obviously you have that kind of school embedded into you. And also, it was really funny to me that I was wondering how the hell did the actors manage to do all of that without screwing every single take laughing. So,
well,
what
we had
could you
some
say about that?
professional actors. We had some great actors on set. My main villain, Tony Manders, he'd done like BBC productions and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So he kind of when I once I cast him, I was like, oh my God, I have to be professional. I can't I can't look like some rank amateur around him. He's gonna think I'm some kid, and I
Mhm.
just it kind of motivated all of us to want to do this thing. Yeah, there weren't actually as many bloopers as I thought there would be. Mostly it's just the technical aspects of actually getting on set and trying to work your way with the environment. Because we
Mhm.
actually we shot in Richmond Park of all places,
Ah,
and
okay, interesting. You managed to transform Richmond Park you know, into a Wild West kind of scenario. So yeah, props then in your planning and production design.
yeah, we scouted around a lot of places, but somehow we found this one little kind of spot that was out of the way inside Richmond Park, and yeah, in autumn once the grass kind of turned yellow, suddenly it looked like the American Wild West. It was wonderful actually.
Mhm.
Although the crazy thing is, out there we had there was like a little prop axe that we were using to kind of
Yeah.
like hurl into a tree, and we were out by ourselves there. We were like a few miles into like the forested area, and we put the axe down somewhere, and then it was only after the shoot had finished we realized someone had taken the axe, and now I had no idea what happened. None of us saw anyone. Whoever this person was could have taken our wallets, could have taken our phones. All they took was the axe and nothing else. And to this day, I'm wondering, like, what person has my axe in their home, and will I ever find them?
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It's basically like who could have been at that point in time there that was desperate to find an axe and didn't need absolutely anything. It's like I need an axe. Oh, one, let's get that one. Oh my god.
It
But
wasn't
in
even
an
a real axe. You couldn't chop wood with it. You couldn't like. It was just a flimsy bit of plastic for the blade, and
and yeah, and by the way, the actual axe throw it was actually a nice movie. I know you cut away, but the bit you're able to see from the throw is actually quite solid.
oh,
It's
thank
not
you.
too shabby.
Yeah, they filmed it very well. They really kind of hid the kind of really flimsy nature of the actual. Like
Yeah,
even the
yeah, yeah.
handle goes a bit like junky, but it's great, man.
So
Yeah,
and now obviously the obligatory question, um, how did the net thing come around? Like, was it the very first idea you had, or funnily enough, did you struggle to actually find that basic, so elementary element of parody?
but partly it was like, how do I? At first, it was like, how do I film in public without people thinking, "Oh my God, there's something horrible happening. We need to call the police. How do I stop police from coming in?" Because we originally had like a whole series of things we were going to do from that point, and then the next one was going to be like a Nerf armed robbery, and then after that we were going to do like a parody of the Hong Kong film industry with John Woo in the 90s, like with Chow Yun Fat or something. So it was going to be a whole series of that. I just thought there was something about Nerf guns and treating them as if they were real that was just kind of so ridiculous and over the top. But as long as everyone takes it seriously and thinks, "Oh my God, this is a real gun," it would sell to audiences, like emotionally. And yeah, that was just the idea I had behind it, and it's so
Mhm.
much more fun. I almost think like if you did that same kind of script and had real guns instead, it would just kind of fall quite flat. It would just be too straight, played too straight like that, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, but that's true. Like with the Nerf guns, you did a really good job in actually putting the gun clicking sounds, the recharging sounds, the reloading sounds, and now you actually let me wonder. Like, am I ever going to someday be able to see a Nerf gun robbery? I don't know the spread you just said. Like, I'm actually looking forward to that because that sounds like it's more interesting than watching, the high scene in Heat, for example. It's like, yeah, now I want to watch that, but with Nerf guns and see how that looks like.
It would be fascinating, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
I
And
need to be
obviously,
the one
as
to
you
make
say,
that.
yeah, yeah, and it goes around the whole restriction of guns, gun requirements in shooting, in shooting places, in shooting scenes.
Yeah, and you could, find some way to shoot a gritty kind of, as you said, a robbery or something, but do it completely safely with these toy guns. But it was quite good. That sound design as well. That was just Benjamin Daniels and his brother Sam. Like they just both spent hours and hours working on the audio and just putting it together frame by frame and layering it and all that technical stuff that I just couldn't possibly. I edited it, but then they kind of went in and just cleaned up the sound in an incredible way. So credit to them for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's excellent. Going through your YouTube channel, you've done a lot of stuff before. I mean, I wonder how long you've been active because you have a lot of series and concepts that you keep developing and working around. From what I'm, as you describe yourself, basically. Uh, let's see. I have it actually here. Uh, you've shot stapler love stories, kung fu battles, mythological beings playing chess, and all of manner of craziness in between. So that sounds like a quite fascinating proposal for a body of work. So then, on that note, I have to say, yeah, you actually do some very interesting action stuff. People should really go now and watch those on Azeem's YouTube channel. Um, Maybe we could try and show one of those on Cinewood at some point. But I have to say that I actually fell prey to what was the name? Stationary Love.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
that one caught me by surprise. I mean, so I love the name, I love the concept, and it's just like, how many you've done of those of Stationary Love? And tell us about
Um,
that one.
that Stationary Love, it was originally like 4 very miniature episodes, and it was like when I first started working for this company based in Hackney, kind of social enterprise. They kind of gave me a little space, and then they were like, "Why don't you do some filming?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll do stop motion," and not realizing just how difficult stop motion is and how time consuming it is. Just for a minute, it would take like ages and ages and
Exactly.
ages just to move everything a tiny bit at a time. So it was quite wonderful, though. I mean, being able to discover stop motion like that and appreciating animation a lot as well, like how you have to have every single frame already kind of there on the space, otherwise you're just not getting it. um yeah, it was a lot of hard work, and off the back of that, through that place, I met a lot of the actors that I would spend the next kind of few years working with, and some filmmakers who I would collaborate alongside of. The main thing I did with that place was I kind of set myself a challenge at the time to make 52 videos in a year, one every week for a whole year, and upload it to YouTube no matter what. And like with their help and a lot of support, we did manage to do that. And for me, it was like a kind of my film school, a way to get used to like how do you shoot for the edit, how do you kind of push forward, even if people drop out, or your cast or your crew or whatever, or you don't have this or you don't have that? How do you keep pushing forward and get something at the end of the day? You know, I'm not saying there's a lot of shit on there, you know, but but it was such a good learning experience for figuring out how to take that shit and do something with it, you know.
Yeah, that's what always happens, and that sounds surprisingly deep and powerful in the sense that, what would you say was the stuff that actually helped you the most in getting through with that challenge of doing 52 videos?
Um, Probably dogged stubbornness. Really, I was just too stubborn to not finish it, and yeah, once you get into the discipline of shooting for the edit, I found that was like the most important thing. Was like, you know, as long as there's so many times where I get one shot and I'd be like, oh, this is such a lovely shot. This is going to be the whole film right here, all around this one particular beautiful shot. But then you actually show the film and it's just one shot in a myriad, you know, and it doesn't always sell the film. It doesn't, most of the time, it doesn't have any effect on the plot whatsoever, you know, and you learn that very quickly as you're doing more of it, you know, and you get more chances to kind of be inside the arena and show your work to people and get more feedback and stuff, you know. Um, so yeah, that was, I think, just pushing through was the most important thing, because at the time I was quite kind of, I wasn't releasing much content and I was a bit frustrated with myself and my own output, you know. But then I think I ended up on the other side of the spectrum where I was kind of doing too much and not taking a step back and focusing and collaborating more, you know.
Yeah, but it sounds lovely. You actually have a very healthy YouTube account for what it matters, and for filmmakers, that's what you're meant to do. As another filmmaker I had interviewed for this week, said, yeah, the point is that if you do, it doesn't matter if what you do is massively good or it's just kind of shit. You're a filmmaker now because you just made something. That's the point. Uh, so let's say, what would you say are your favorite projects from the ones you've been in, and what do you say is the next thing for you moving on?
Um, well, Fistful of Nerf is definitely up there, and that was the first proper time it's been me and a co-director, because I quite a lot of the time, and when I was doing that challenge and even just generally over the years, it's quite lonely being like the film director on the set and trying to kind of steer everyone in one direction, and you can't ever appear, you know, like you have doubts or anything like that, because the second that your will starts to falter, suddenly the kind of the vibe from everyone else starts to falter too. You know, they're always kind of looking to you for guidance, and that's tough. It can be very lonely, I found. But having Ben on set was wonderful. You know, I even in normal life I see him as a brother, you know, and having him on there, it was like my brother was alongside me, and he could like he could direct the people and I could just sort of focus on the more technical stuff, which is what I like. I struggle with people most of the time, you know.
Well,
Um,
not here. Yeah, you're doing amazing.
I've got 5 more minutes, and then I'm just gonna, you know. But yeah, no, it's just it's that having been was amazing for that. So, Fistful of Nerf is one of my favorites. There was another film I made in conjunction with. There were two social enterprises and a charity in Hackney that were working with me, and it was called Beauty. And they made an art exhibit, and Beauty was like one of the films that was on show that evening. And it was the first time I worked with like proper real actors. Up to that point, it had been people like me who were like amateurs who were just trying to throw themselves into it. But it was the first time I worked with proper actors, and I found it so invigorating because they kind of made me better just by being around them. You know, I felt, even outside of acting, just the breadth of their knowledge kind of inspired me to kind of keep pushing forward and keep kind of doing stuff. So that was quite wonderful.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
moving. Yeah, I'm moving on. What's the next? Where do you see going next on your projects and your outlook as a filmmaker?
I mean, I think I need to see where the world is going next before
Yeah.
I can figure out where I go next. Like when the pandemic hit, you know, all my filmmaking, like everything, just went to zero. I didn't feel tempted to. Even in the past, I used to like upload pictures to Instagram every day, just random pictures and stuff. But just yeah, with everything happening in the world right now, it's really hard to figure that out. And I don't want to be one of these filmmakers who makes a film about being in lockdown, because suddenly that's like the new end thing right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you're making the right call. Yeah, I mean, yeah, guys out there, take note of what Azeem is saying. Saturation is a concept that exists, and it's like with zombie films. Don't do zombie films. Don't do lockdown films. Well, unless you have a really good one, but most of all, don't do a zombie lockdown film. That would be the worst thing you can do because there's just too many of those two things.
Now
No
that
one's
you've
going
said
to.
it, now that you've spoken it into the world, someone is going to make a zombie lockdown pandemic film.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, we'll see how
Yeah.
that goes. Uh, so then go. I'm going to stop talking, and then how did you got started? How did you get started? You yourself as a filmmaker.
Um, I was finishing off my degree in psychology, and
Mhm.
I was very bored. It was my last kind of year, and I started taking some side courses in a few different things, and a place called the City Literature Institute. And one of the things they did was like a 1 day short film course. And I took it. I really enjoyed it, and I kept on doing it. And it was not something I came into it very late, comparatively speaking. I came to it quite late, but I loved it so much. I got so much out of it. It's so rewarding to kind of be on a set and be with a crew and everyone collaborates and works on a story together. For a long time, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. So that's kind of what got me into it. And growing up, I'd always watch loads of films and just be so into it.
This is one funny thing that caught my attention. At the beginning of A Fistful of Nerf, there's this logo that says Bebop Films. What is Bebop Films, and how did that come about?
That was kind of like my company name at one point. I guess it still is like my production company, if
Uh-huh.
you want to call it that. If you want, whatever a production company does nowadays. But it was kind of like I loved jazz music, and I also kind of loved. There was an anime called Cowboy Bebop, which is
That's what I was thinking. That's what I
you
was
know it,
thinking.
right? You know it. Leading me on with the question, I know it, man. And yeah, it's like a mixture of so much culture, and it's like in its own way, it's also a celebration of like the tropes of American kind of films and the old westerns and stuff. But it remixes everything in such a beautiful, wonderful way. And even though it's like a 20-year-old anime at this point, it's still such a
Yeah,
big influence on my life.
exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean. It was also for me, funny enough. It was that turnaround point that when I saw Cowboy Bebop, it was literally at that point in life where I actually decided, you know what? There's just too many. There's just too much good things coming from many countries in terms of filmmaking, and Cowboy Bebop was an example of, that's when Japan kind of. That's when I found out that Japan was doing animation that didn't have anything to do with what in the West we consider animation. Like it's completely out of that field, and that's what actually made me grow from a boy that thought that the world had boundaries, frontiers, and limits to thinking, you know what? There's a place for anything. You just need to find which is that one thing you want to do, and then you have to fight for it. And yeah, so basically, yeah, it was also a turning point for my life when Logan in front of you. I thought it had something to do with Cowboy Bebop because the logo it has somebody playing the trumpet, but then you have kind of a reference to the Mang Entertainment logo behind that, right? So I said, I see where he's going.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right on that, and
Yeah, that's
it's
lovely,
so
and yeah,
true.
and it feels like a funny like a fitting reference with the whole Wild West setting on A Fistful of Nerve, the whole cowboy thing.
Yeah, it's kind of retro futuristic, isn't it?
Yeah,
I always feel like every filmmaker out there, we're like bounty hunters, like those characters in Cowboy Bebop, just trying to look for the next big score, all floating around in space, isolated together, And I just think it's
that's
a
good.
very apt metaphor.
Yeah. Now, this is a question I really like to filmmakers, which is it's more of a taste question for yourself. Um, if you had to recommend one film that in your opinion everybody should see, which one would it be?
Everyone, no matter what age
Yeah,
or.
yeah, an essential movie for you, and you think you have to see that one if you're going to watch one film.
Ah, that's tough. Hmm. Probably. If there's one film that I would recommend, that I think everyone should see, it's probably Wong Kar-wai's "In the Mood for Love."
Interesting.
I think the way that film, I've seen every single Wong Kar-wai film in his library, but if you ask me to tell you the story of any one of them, I will probably I'd be able to tell you one of them, and most of them I'd be like, I don't really know what happened in that film. I'm not really sure about plot, but in terms of emotion and conveying like the emotion of people and how we interact with each other, I think Wong Kar-wai, nobody even comes close to doing it the way he does. The way he almost captures like the mood and essence of a place. And I just thinking about that film, I get nostalgic for an era that I wasn't born in, that there's no way I even lived through, and yet somehow I'm there and I'm transported, And just the way that film deals with loneliness and isolation, I think it's quite important.
Hmm. Yeah, it's lovely. It's beautiful, and that reminds me that you actually have a surprisingly diverse range of topics that you cover when you're doing filmmaking. Like, yeah, like you have all many kinds of stuff. What would you say are your actual favorites in what you like doing when
In
you're
terms of
telling a
like
story?
genre or like
Yeah,
subject or
yeah. When you're telling a story, basically, what are the favorite your favorite things to do?
I I do love humor. I do love comedy, and I
Mhm.
also love kind of action as well and finding ways to combine the two. I think one of my favorite filmmakers is Jackie Chan. I think he's so underrated in what he does, and how he can like take something that's usually very violent and horrifying if you saw it in real life, but then turn it into basically like a real life cartoon, And
Mhm.
I've tried to find ways to make that happen. I'm still not quite. I'm nowhere near there yet, but I'd love to build up to that. So, I think comedy action would be my preferred realm if I could pick one that I'd be tied down to.
Nice, nice. Looking forward to seeing something like that. Really, really. I mean, you were doing this one thing. It was called Battle Creek Hackney, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. How did that go in your own terms?
It it took a long time. I spent like a year and a half in post production on that, and that was a film that should have been done so much quicker. But I got very my pre-production wasn't good enough. I made loads of mistakes on set, and if you make loads of mistakes, you have to spend ages in post-production trying to fix them. And even then, like the movie's not that great, but that was fun because it was a chance to kind of make like a big, like it was close to 30 minutes, and it was a chance to make a big film around Hackney, around martial arts and stuff, and try and do our best to kind of push the envelope on what we could attain, in terms of our physicality and martial arts action. So it was quite fun. I got to work with some really amazing people there, some people who I think could be very successful in the action industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I watched the trailer for Battle Creek Hackney, and I was quite surprised. It's just that not only there was some solid action going on, but also there was little things like, for example, you went to the effort actually getting a theme song for the whole thing. Those things that makes you think, whoa, that's interesting. That's like
Yeah,
that extra mile that you don't see every day, really.
yeah, there was layers to the casting. Like I cast the villain with this actor who I knew was a musician, and I had a feeling that if I asked him very nicely, he would have done a theme song for us. So he ended up doing a theme song for us, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is incredible!" I'm getting a film made where a theme song is made by the main villain, and it's just, yeah, that was such a cool feeling. Yeah.
Oh my god, that sounds good. I feel like I want to do that next time I do a film. I want to get some celebrity musician to play the bad guy, because bad guys are always cool, and then get that guy to do a nice theme song or something. I don't know, whatever. Make him sing in the shower, whatever it is. Uh, It doesn't like a mission. Like for example, it reminds me of for example this movie I love by Brian De Palma called Phantom of the Paradise. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I
Um,
haven't seen that one, I don't think, but
well,
I've heard good
they
things.
said so the whole movie they set up that there's this the main antagonist, the bad guy, is this legendary rock star slash film compose slash music composer slash music producer that he has a whole wing of Fort Knox dedicated to housing his records, things like that. And he's this mystery character that you only see his hands for the first 20 minutes. And when he appears, his actual musician, American musician Paul Williams. He's a quite
Ah,
known guy because exactly because the thing is that the guy is quite short. Basically, the guy is kind of dwarfish, let's say. So the thing, so when he appears, it's a very striking image. But he has this extremely sweet voice, and when he sings, he really pulls it off. So it's like it's one of those amazing cases. Like you think, like, wow, that's a really good combination. So
I'll
yeah,
check that out. What was the name of that film?
Phantom of the Paradise
Phantom of
by
Paradise.
Brian De Palma. Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like it's the same director that did Mission Impossible just 10 years later. Like not at all. And Scarface just a few years after Phantom of the Paradise. Yeah, there's just so much good stuff like that. Oh
That's
my god.
amazing.
And I don't know how you've been going through the lockdown. How would you say that it has affected your productivity, and how do you think are you going to try to get out of that of that small pause in the way?
I it's been rough going, but it's been rough going for everyone. You know,
Hmm.
I find I feel like my brain is slowly turning to mush. You know, my short term memory is like all over the place. There's stuff that I don't remember doing that apparently I did, and all this stuff. And it's a trip, man. But you know, um, I'd love to get back to filmmaking once the world is a bit safer, I guess. You know, I'd love
Hmm.
to meet up with actors again and get a chance to collaborate with people. But
Hmm.
it's hard because, yeah, I don't want like the first film I come up with out of production to be like, you know, a Zoom film or a quarantine film or
Exactly.
something like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Hmm.
almost
There's
think
one.
maybe the world needs more comedy once we're out of this,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Yeah, the word definitely needs more comedy, but I get totally your meaning. Is but I'm completely sure that very soon we're going to actually see a new way of trying to put together projects and see what happens. Like I'm, for example, in the same boat. All of us are in the same boat. Now on Cinebooth, we are actually we got one of the people that came to the events, and we're now producing a short film with him. He
Oh,
writes and directs, and basically we're facing that struggle of trying to actually design a production plan that takes into account all of the safe health and safety measures, procedures, guidelines, because we're trying to create a production as possible, as professional as possible. So, and it is a battle, but what we think is that if we manage to pull it off, it could serve very well to also help others to actually get things done along the road that way. Um, so yeah, so it is a process for everyone, but I think we're all gonna make it if we just keep pushing. For me,
of
I think
course.
that's is like what you're saying, like being tough-headed, be very stubborn, and just keep going for it. I mean, that's key for everything. I mean, at the end of the day, um, for me, it's perseverance and being a nice man. If you're kind and honest, be as hard as you can, and you're going to get to where you're supposed to get. For me, I mean, I don't know. I think that's the point. It's not easy, but hey, who said all of this was gonna be easy?
No, I
um,
completely agree. I completely agree.
uh-huh. So let's see. Is there any topic or any thing you'd like to talk about, or something that springs to your mind?
Um, I don't know. I can't think of much. The one of my pursuits that I've started doing since lockdown started was I
Hmm.
got into Dungeons and Dragons, which
Ah.
which I found quite fascinating as the kind of games master or the person kind
Hmm.
of running the thing because it felt very similar to film directing for me. It was like
Exactly.
your kind of players are like your crew and your
Exactly.
cast and you're all guiding to the story together. I found that so fascinating in a way that before lockdown I would never have thought I'd be even close to being into something like that. You
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
it is storytelling. That's the point. It is storytelling at the end of the day, and it's just another way to. It's for a lot of people. It's actually there's been some people that it's actually the way they actually find that they have a vocation in storytelling and writing.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I get your point completely. I mean, it's just another way to somehow keep this machine going while we're in this very strange process. Like in my case, what I did is that I turned back to music. I used to be a musician for many, many, many years. I'm a performer. I play the violin, but I was never a composer. But I had the theory in my head, but I just had so much respect for the act of composing that I never
Mm.
really tried. And then when we were putting together the Cinebus show, I said to myself, you know what? Just to fight this sense of dread uh, and an oppression that the whole thing has, I'm going to try to get out of this body and just try to compose something for the opening sequence of
Mm.
the show. And bam, and I surprised myself. Like it's not something out of this world, but it works. It sounds and it doesn't make your ears bleed. Let's put it like that.
That's
um,
amazing.
yeah. So it's and then suddenly, yeah, that feeling actually left, went away. That feeling of actually being worried, like physically worried and affected by the whole situation. So I think that that's what I've been proposing to everybody. Like, look for something productive or something that actually makes your head actually work onto a specific task, and it's like magic. It's like magic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think if I didn't have that conduit to kind of like throw all of my creative energy into, I think I would have kind of gone insane in this lockdown because it's always kind of in there, that nervous energy that you want to create something and make something, and getting to like do that stuff with your friends or it's a wonderful experience. It's not quite the same on Zoom as it is in meeting in real life, of course, because I always find these conversations that we have are quite binary over Zoom, isn't it? We're always kind of waiting for one person to finish so the other person can start, right? It's not
mhm,
quite in a normal conversation without lag or latency. The dialogue would overlap each other, and
mhm.
that's you know
Yeah, I know
I
what you
think.
mean, but that's also me actually waiting a lot because I want to give you space to talk, and you're going to see that I do that for all of the interviews. Like I'm just standing there, just looking at the other person while they're talking about the thing, because yeah, because normally what they're saying is more interesting than anything I could add normally, and this is the point of the whole thing, is for them to speak and to promote themselves and to, yeah, and to be reachable basically. So I'm extremely happy about how that has been going. I think by this point we can wrap up basically the interview.
Okay.
What I was going to say is that for any other project you may have that you've done in the past or in the future that you think you'd like to be shown in the context of Cinemas, please just feel free to get back in touch with us and we can talk about anything you'd like.
Okay.
And when that moment comes, for any project, we can also do another one of interview like this to celebrate the occasion, and that will be nothing more than the greatest pleasure. Uh, yeah, I mean it's been a very lovely surprise. To get to meet you like this. And yeah, and I think we could keep talking in a relaxed way like this for hours. And yeah, but I won't be taking that much of your time. And I see that you're also kind of like me. You're also kind of shy, so I don't want to throw too much into it.
Sometimes. No, it's been a really lovely pleasure. This is the most I've talked about my films with anyone in months. So thank
Mhm.
you for doing this and keeping like the spirit of kind of independent film alive, because we need more places like this. Like more of the like low budget cinemas and theaters and other places like that as they close down. We need
Mhm.
more. We need more groups like you to kind of keep that flame burning.
Yeah, yeah. And what we need is more guys like you, definitely. So yeah, I mean, so then it's been a pleasure. Guys, go and look Azeem Mustafa on YouTube. Let me see. What's the name of your channel on YouTube? Basically, yeah, Azeem Mustafa is your name. So go look the name. You've probably already seen A Fistful of Nerf, but that's only the beginning of what Azeem has to offer. And this is also the first of hopefully many interviews where you'll be seeing him and we'll be getting a lot more of his own outlook and insight into everything he can offer and the filmmaking world through his eyes. So guys, get ready for the next event and look forward to all of that. If there's any goodbye comments you'd like to say, Azeem?
Thanks so much, everyone. I hope you enjoy it. Stay safe and keep shooting.
See you guys.